Survive! Beast here, reviewing a fire starting product from the company called Survive. It is a carbon copy of the ultimate survival technology, Strike Force, which you have seen in my videos for a very long time. If I were going to be putting a bug out bag starting kit, fire starting kit together, this guy would be in here. Part of the reason that I have this was because I thought I would give it a shot to see if it was like this, because I've had plenty of use with this guy and it's getting a little worn. See if we can get that to focus. There we go. A little worn, still got lots of fires left, but if I'm building a bug out bag, I don't really want to start with something I've been using for several years. Thought I would get an identical piece and put it together. It's nice having the the striker always included. Nice high carbon striker. You're always going to get a hot spark. You can't lose it even if you lose your knife. There is a tinder compartment in the back. I actually have 2 wet fires shoved in there, but I've done cattail fluff, you name it. Put it into your dry tinders that you come along. You can store that in there. Now you have a pretty good chance of getting a fire started when you need it. The Survive here comes from Dave Canterbury's store that he sells. And one of the things I, in my project, wanted to try was one of the guys, got a hold of Dave, and Dave sponsored this and became his official Pathfinder fire starter, which is a kind of a wax impregnated cotton. A little bit of all sorts of stuff in there. They started as flat discs, and we'll do a separate video on this. And these are the smaller ones, the micros. And I wanted to try these, so I went to his site, and then I saw that you can get the package and a fire starter for a pretty good deal. And because I wanted a spare Strike Force, I thought I'd give it a shot. Well, I was a little disappointed. Obviously, the Strike Force is going to be 22, 24 bucks, anywhere up to 30 if you look online. That's just the price you're going to pay for it. This and the fire starter, I believe I got off Dave's site before shipping, was like 22 bucks. So this is like 16 bucks, $18. So it's quite a bit less than the Strike Force. It's hard to expect it to be the same. And the first thing I noticed when I pulled the tinder thing is it's not quite as a sturdy snap, so I'm worried about it coming out and falling out, losing my tinder basically. As you can see, the microfires that you get with the Survive aren't red, so although I've used a couple of these and they've worked pretty good, I've yet to see if they work as good as the red ones. But I'm not sure if that was just a bad batch that ended up being stored in these or what. But they're definitely not the exact same thing, at least by color. There is this hokey little mirror inside the cap here, which, I don't know, you'd never use that for anything. It kind of becomes one of those, do you have too many things in one item to be useful? Again, just the little things that you get with, the cheaper items, like that is just not quite as a firm snap when that goes together. It's a little bit looser. This one, I can almost knock the camera off the tripod, swinging my arms to get that open. And this is after years of use. So it opens a whole lot easier. The other thing is the striker was kind of rounded. See if we can bring you in here. I had to take a file and sharpen those edges down just so I could get a better spark, because my initial impression of it was abysmal. I mean, it was horrible. It threw very anemic little baby sparks, and you had to put a lot of effort into it, and it was just because that striker was not finished. The other added little survival thing that does is you can take the striker out, and it has a ruler on it. So you can measure. I don't know if that's going to focus or not. So there's centimeters and inches. As you can see, I went ahead and filed each end just in case this one gets rounded off or broken or something. because I don't know if the steel itself is as hard, but I squared off all the edges so you can get a little bit better striking on it. It does sink down in there a little bit farther than it should, so you kind of have to pull it out halfway. If you push it all the way in, you won't have much of a striker. The rod itself seems pretty good. Obviously you have to get the coating off, you have to use it a little bit. You know, I don't know if you can tell on here, but once you got that striker squared off, you know, it throws pretty good sparks. It's not quite, you know, and you can still get some pretty good shavings, very hot sparks. This is fireproof, by the way, so don't worry about that. You know, after all that, then, you know, I'd say it does pretty good. We can kind of compare them. You know, if I take the Ultimate Survival Striker, you know, it definitely pulls some hot sparks. We'll just try the red one here and on here. As you can see, not quite the sparks that are on that one. If I take this one, now I'm getting better sparks. The striker and probably the high carbonness, I don't really know, but the striker on this one is better. And you know, I think it's a good substitute. You can't expect it to be exactly the same for less money. But once you do a few modifications, you can kind of bring it up to speed. We will be testing the tinders just to see if the sort of white lack of the color does anything, which I doubt it will. I'm sure it's just coloring. I'm sure all the wax and everything in the cotton will do just as fine, because I've already used a couple of these, not in comparison, but just by themselves, and I've been very impressed with how they burn. So that's kind of it. It was a quick little video, just kind of show you kind of what I was planning, what I tried. You know, if you don't want to spend the cash for this, this is an acceptable replacement. You just have to do a few things to make it work. I don't think the gimmicky sort of survival stuff is really necessary. I don't think you really need the mirror. I don't know that that would do any good. It's certainly barely big enough that I can even self-diagnose, which is another reason I use the mirrors as far as like eye injuries and stuff like that. It may be able to reflect, and you know, you may be able to shoot a tiny little reflection up to a plane or something, but it's certainly not anything to write home about. The ruler, you're probably never going to use the ruler on there, so I don't know. Worthy replacement for a few bucks cheaper. If you can find the UST for a better price, I would still stick with the Strike Force, but not a bad combination considering I got the fire starters that came in this and an entire box of the micros for basically the same cost as the UST. So that's a quick little look at Canterbury's fire starter that he's carrying. And I thank you all for watching.